Hey everybody, welcome back to Sneakers and Sports. Today I've got an awesome video for you today. We're going to preview the 2024-25 NHL season. I've got a special guest with me today, an amazing broadcaster, calls many different sports, does a great job on the mic. My good buddy Jag, it's a pleasure to have you on here. And just give us a quick introduction as to how we met.
Yeah, first off, Nick, I really appreciate that introduction, man. It means a lot for me to hop on the show here with you. I think it was back in January or February where we had first met for the BC High School Provincial Championships. I know there were the junior championships, there were the senior championships as well. And I remember because I was behind the mic for a game and you were sitting right beside me. You had to do a story, I believe, for Howard Samura and his website. And from that point on, like we just instantly started clicking. We started talking a lot of basketball, and I remember because we were wondering if we could get you in the color commentator role for this one upcoming game that was coming up, and ultimately, fortunately, things ended up working out, and you were able to hop on the headset.
It's kind of like fate, it just happened to be next to each other that day and yeah, realized, hey, we got something good here. But let's get into this video here. Let's get into the upcoming season with the NHL and being the day that we decided to record, some very unfortunate news has come up and the hockey world is very saddened to hear of the passing of Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew. Tragic accident late last night, August 29th. We definitely want to give our condolences to the Gaudreau family and everyone surrounded with that and the hockey world as well. He had a huge impact in the league and he always had a smile on his face. So you definitely want to kind of cover that a little bit and get your thoughts on that.
You know, I it took me aback. It took me back, definitely for sure. I think with all of the contributions that Johnny Gaudreau gave onto the ice, all the goals that he scored, all the intense moments that he had off of the ice, just the amazing person that he was. I think that is what truly shocked me to believe the fact that he was gone. And not just Johnny, his brother Matthew as well.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to move forward from anything like that, but we're gonna do our best. So um getting into this season, I've got a few storylines that I'm excited to follow and watch and stay up on for this year. So the first one I think that a lot of us are kind of going to be following is the all-time scoring record. And will Ovechkin get to Wayne Gretzky's record? He's currently 41 goals away, so he needs 42 this season to break it. Um, Personally, based on the last couple seasons he's had, I think it's going to be close. It's going to be very tough. Um, that being said, I think that, the team around him and everyone around kind of knows what he's going for. And I think that, his teammates and his line mates specifically are going to try and set him up and feed him for some goals. So, um, I'm going to make the prediction now. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen in the last game of the season. That's what I'm going to say. It's going to be, an awesome goal. Really, of course, it's going to be in his office. It's going to be, in his one-timer spot. Um, and yeah, so I think that I'm optimistic, and I want to know what you think, Jag.
Yeah, man. And I mean, just talking off of that, he is, he got this past season, he got 31 goals closer to Wayne Gretzky's tally. And I think with that, putting that in mind, right, he's kind of had a same mindset as well. If I make it, it's good, but it's still 42 goals. Those were the exact same words that Alex Ovechkin had. And it was an up and down season for him this last season, Nick. He had 8 goals in the first 43 games, but
Yeah.
in the last 36 contests, he tallied 23 goals, helped the Capitals make the playoffs. Unfortunately, they fell in the first round. And I mean, he set an NHL record this year, right? 18th 30 goal campaign, but failed to reach 40 over a full schedule for the first time since 2016-17. That was the season before he would go on and win the Stanley Cup. So Ovechkin being 38 years old, his game is obviously declining. I mean, not everyone can be LeBron James, where you're 40 years old and you're still one of the best players in the league.
That's
But
right.
make no mistake, Ovechkin is still one of the best goal scorers in the NHL just because of that offense at the left circle, that lethal shot. It gets me every single time. It just brings me joy. I've been watching Ovechkin ever since I was a kid. I remember back in '09 when Ovechkin and Crosby had their dueling hat tricks in the playoff series, and it just puts into perspective, right? He's been playing at such an elite level for a long time. And I think if I was to have a prediction, I'd say that he gets close to the record this season. He might not make it. But if he does make it, my perfect scenario would be a home game for the Washington Capitals. And Ovechkin scores from his office, that left side circle,
For sure.
just absolute wires one past the goaltender and hats, that sort of stuff. And this would be, man, like we haven't seen something like this in forever. It would, I think, if it were to happen, the NHL should take a look into the same thing that the NBA did when LeBron got the all-time scoring record, pausing the game,
Yeah.
having, sort of a celebration at center ice, bring out Ovechkin's family and all that sort of stuff, because it is history. And, I am a fan of Alex Ovechkin. I will not be afraid to say that. And I do hope that he sincerely reaches the record before the end of his playing career.
The second storyline that I'm looking forward to for this upcoming season is what the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to be doing with their core going forward, and more specifically with Sidney Crosby, because is an interesting situation in the last several years. Obviously, if we look back further in the timeline, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions in 2016, 2017. So, not too far removed from, being at the top of the hockey world. But that being said, that is 7 years ago, and that will be 8 seasons ago at the end of this year. So, um, Crosby's entering his 20th season, so he's definitely getting in towards the end of his career. That being said, you can see the points for last season that he produced on the screen. So he's still putting up 94 points. It's kind of an interesting storyline that I'm going to be looking at going into the season, and I want to know your thoughts on that, Jag.
Yeah, man. So first off, I feel like Sidney Crosby nowadays is one of the most disrespected people in the NHL, just in terms of his ability to still put up the points and his ability to still be that top six forward, as you were making mention of. It's no secret that the NHL is a younger league nowadays, right? There's
Yeah,
been Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, and all of these younger superstars that are starting to take over the league. However, you are failing, you, as some people are failing
hockey
to
fans.
recognize, hockey fans, hockey fans, hockey Twitter, whatever you want to
Yep,
call it.
yep.
People are still failing to recognize the greatness of Sidney Crosby 19 years into his career. Now, I made mention earlier on when we were talking about Alex Ovechkin, not everybody can be LeBron James, being a top five center,
I was
top
just gonna
five,
say.
or being a top five player towards the prime end of their career. However, Sidney Crosby is still that guy. And
Mhm.
I think not just from his offensive production, not just from the play that he does on the ice, but he's one of the best leaders, if not the best leader in the NHL. What he does off of the ice, what he does on the ice. I saw a clip the other day where Evgeny Malkin last season had missed. Apparently, he had missed a wide open net. I forget when this was. It was sometime in the playoffs, and there were rumblings on the bench going around. Some players saying, "Man, he was like wide open. How could he not do that?" And Crosby's like, "Hey boys, like don't hang your heads. It's okay. We got to go and support him. We got to go give him a couple stick taps and move on to the next play. We'll get him next time, right?"
That's
And
right.
for the captain to say something like that, and I think, logistically on that Penguins team, only Sidney Crosby would be the one to, sort of make fun. He would be the only one allowed to not particularly make fun, but downplay the mistake, or like, point out the mistake that Malkin did. I don't think anybody else is deserving as such of doing so, seeing how long Crosby and Malkin have played together. Nick, we're talking about 16 straight years in the playoffs for the Penguins, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions in 2016, 17, but we're now at this point where it's another back-to-back seasons without a postseason appearance. Their core players, they are aging. I mean, we saw Sidney Crosby's getting up there, Evgeny Malkin, he's getting up there, Chris Letang, he's getting up there as well.
Mhm.
many people don't believe that the Penguins have what it takes to win while these players are finishing up their careers in Pittsburgh. Crosby, he's got 1 year remaining on his contract. I believe he is eligible for an extension. And I mean, me personally, I think that if it hasn't already been signed, I think that Crosby will finish his career with the Pittsburgh Penguins, similar to what we saw with Steph Curry the other day. He just signed a 1 year
Yep.
extension with the Golden State Warriors. He had 2 years remaining on his original contract. You add one more year to that, and I think that Curry will probably end up finishing his career in Golden State. And not to backtrack, but I think that probably ends the hope of Curry and LeBron getting to play together. I know a lot of people wanted to see it, including myself. I wanted to see that as well, but it doesn't look like we'll have that to happen. And I mean, it's kind of weird that the Penguins are in a now or never mode, because we're never going to see Sidney Crosby playing in the playoffs as a member of the Penguins. Some people believe that. I know TSN's Frank Corrado believed that as well. Canucks legend, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think with that Metropolitan Division, however, though, Nick, it's kind of wide open in a sort of Seth. I mean, the Rangers, they're doing good. The Devils,
Yep.
they kind of need to take that step up again. I know they had a couple seasons making the playoffs. The Islanders, they aren't overly exciting me at all. Carolina, they're kind of like that team that gets to the point, but they just can't get that
They've
hump
also seemed to
over.
have taken a couple steps back as well.
Exactly, losing the players that they did. The
Yep.
Washington Capitals, we talked about them earlier on, and they are trying to improve, though. The Washington Capitals, they are trying to improve. Same could be said about the Pittsburgh Penguins as well.
Yeah.
And um, I think if playoffs don't happen next season for the Penguins, I don't think it means the end of the road for Crosby. I think probably an extension will be signed. I think he will come back as a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And many people think, oh, he's already won all these cups. Like, what does he need? What more does he need, right? Why does he need to still win? But thinking about it, as a player, you want to end off your career winning. You want to be part of a
Yeah.
winning culture. I think that goes for any
And
player.
and just as a
Any
competitor, every time you decide you want to play a season, you expect and you have to win. And then moving on to the third topic and the third storyline that I'm looking forward to this season, related to the jersey I've got on here. There, if I can show it into the screen.
There we go.
Um, you know, we saw it last year. Canadian team made the Stanley Cup Finals, and the Edmonton Oilers. Side note, not the team ideally I would have wanted. I think same with you, but you know, we haven't had a Canadian team win a Stanley Cup since 1993 in the Montreal Canadiens. So it's definitely overdue, and I'm just hoping that we get another opportunity for that. I think that this year is we have a better chance than last year. The NHL in the last several years has had so much parity in that, you can't predict what team's going to win. Um, just thinking last year into the playoffs, you had teams like the Stars were hot. We were always thinking about the Vegas Golden Knights because what they were doing with players coming off of IR. And then you had, teams like Boston and Florida. And obviously, the Leafs always think they have a shot every year. And then we haven't even talked about the Oilers and the Canucks, right? And so that's already five, six teams that, had a legitimate chance to win the cup. So there's a lot of parity. And so that gives the Canadian teams a chance to win. But at the same time, obviously, there's only seven teams compared to the rest of the US teams. So, Jag, in your opinion, is there a realistic chance of a Canadian team finally breaking that drought this year?
It feels like we're at the start of every single year, we're starting to single out which Canadian team can bring the cup back to Canada, or who can break that drought. And we got so close last year, man. I really thought at before Game 7 of Edmonton versus Florida, I really think that it was going to happen. I mean, I had thought that um I thought that somebody was going to be the one to break it, but now it's, as you made mention, 31 years since the Stanley Cup title was won by a Canadian team. And I mean, when I really put it into perspective, Nick, if I'm being honest with you, Canadian teams all around, like everybody has made their improvements. There's so many Canadian markets that we have: Vancouver, Edmonton, Ottawa, Calgary, Montreal, Toronto. People say that it's going to end soon, but we get so close. And then this year, the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid being down 3-0. They almost created one of the greatest comeback stories in all of sports history.
So close.
Um, so close, man. I remember we did game 7 on Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi, and I remember just the vibe around the studio at the start of it, man. We were all so hyped. Not just the fact that we were doing a game 7 of the Stanley Cup final, like that is a dream come true for anybody that works in sports media, getting to cover that particular game. But the fact that Edmonton had a chance to make history for the country of Canada ultimately did fall up short, man. And it was a tough pill to swallow for Edmonton fans. I am very much sure of that. But if I was to, to answer your original question, because I feel like I've backtracked so much here, I think if there was a team in my mind, as much as I love the Vancouver Canucks, I think the Edmonton Oilers will be the ones to break that drought.
If I had to pick out of the East, it would definitely be the Maple Leafs. Is the most likely team. But we know what happens to them come playoff time. I will say it quickly on the Leafs. I do hope that they exercise some of their playoff demons. Over on the West, I think I would have to agree with you and go with the Oilers if they're gonna break the drought. Moving forward, do you have any storylines that you want to mention that you're excited for going into this 2024-25 season?
Yeah, man. I think the biggest one for me, it would obviously have to be the Vancouver Canucks. I am a writer for a website called Canucks Army, so I do write about and cover the Canucks, as part of my many gigs. But I think with I think with this upcoming season, especially, it's just a lot of questions come to mind, Nick, and one of them are mainly, is there going to be continuity? Is there going to be a sense of consistency in a
For
way?
sure.
Because many fans, they don't want to see the same thing where the bubble run left so many fans with so much hope. Game 7 of round 2. Oh, next year, we're gonna run it back, right? We're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna try and be the same team again. And we all know kind of how the next year ended up for the Canucks. They wouldn't see the
Hmm.
playoffs again until this very 2024 year. And that was in due part to losing as many people as they did. And I don't know if you remember that offseason for the Vancouver Canucks. I believe it was the 2020-21 season, 2020-21 season, but we lost a lot of key guys. Well, I can't say we, but the Canucks lost a lot of key guys that offseason.
Yeah.
People that come to mind, I think if I'm trying to remember it, they lost Jacob Markstrom, for example. They lost
Hmm.
Chris Tanev.
Yep.
They lost Troy Stetcher, Tyler Toffoli,
I
and
believe that was
some of
the
those.
time when we traded away Bo Horvat as well. So it was kind of
That
around
that
that
was
time.
no, that was actually about three seasons later. This is the 2020 season I'm talking about, right after
Oh,
the
okay.
bubble
Okay.
year.
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, Travis Hamonic, we lost him as well. Josh Levo, we lost him as well, and in return, we gained. We also lost Jordy Ben, Adam Gaudette, like these
Hmm.
these these key guys down the depth, which
Yeah.
it didn't seem like it was going to be much of an effect at the time, but looking back on it, right, like that changed the way the team was operated. And obviously it was the COVID year, right? Like it was the year where we were not in the typical divisions, the Pacific Division, all those divisions, right?
Yeah.
But I think now that I think about this now, and like in comparison to the players we've lost, or like they've lost, I keep saying we, but the players that they've lost this year, Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, Ian Cole, Sheldon Dries, Casey DeSmith, and some of the minor guys such as Aiden McDonough, Zach Sawchenko, Nick Cisick. I want to say that the fear of these guys leaving will leave a big hole. Like the fear is still there, right? But on
Hmm.
the other hand, we take a look at all the guys that the Canucks have gained. Jake DeBrusk, Danton Heinen from the Boston Bruins, and DeBrusk locked up long-term 7-year contract. With DeBrusk, you won't see him as quite the goal scorer during the regular season. I will admit that, but when it comes to playoff time, he knows how to perform.
Yeah.
And I mean, you take a look at that first round against the Toronto Maple Leafs, a few key goals in that series, which helped the Bruins advance forward. Danton Heinen, I mean, he is a local Langley born. I know he played for the Richmond Sockeyes, a team that I cover. He also played for the Surrey Eagles as well, the new
Yep.
team that I cover now. So, I think for me, especially, that is very special, having him back in Vancouver. Kiefer Sherwood, Derek Forbert, Yuri Patera, Nate Smith, and Vincent Desharnais, getting him for that 2-year contract that we did. And I think the biggest steal out of them all probably will be Daniel Sprong, getting him for 1 year under $1 million. Like, this is someone that can easily pull up 30 to 40 points in the regular season. And I think for the Canucks, establishing his role, like, he could play a top six role if needed, but I think for him having some sort of consistency, not on the third line, because we already know that third line of Bluger,
Yes.
Joshua, and Garland, like, that is a special line set in stone. We don't need to change that ever.
Don't mess with a good
But
thing for sure.
don't met yeah, if something's not broken, don't try and fix it,
That's
right?
right.
Like,
That's right.
that's the way the saying goes. But Daniel Sprong, in my opinion, I think it's a very good pickup for the Vancouver Canucks. And the re-signing of Artur Shilovs as well. He was an RFA heading into this offseason, re-signing him as
Huge.
well. That was huge as well. So while my overall sort of theme heading into next season is, can the Canucks maintain the consistency with the changes that they made? One other situation that we got to kind of dive into was their goaltending situation. Now,
Absolutely.
we lost Case, or they lost Casey DeSmith to the Dallas Stars agency. Thatcher Demp, we saw injured in the first round, all the problems that he had, and now Shilovs, apparently he has some knee inflammation as well.
Yeah.
Who does that leave the Canucks with? I mean, there's Nikita Tolopilo. I remember, there's him down in Abbotsford. There's a couple other goaltenders down in Abbotsford, but you don't have an NHL caliber starting goaltender at the start of the regular seasons. There is going to be concern. So if I'm in the Canucks, I would go and chase at least somebody to help pass his time. There's Kevin Lankinen that comes to the mind from the Nashville Predators.
Hmm.
Maybe you throw a trade for him in there as well, right?
Yep.
Because goaltending is just as crucial as anything else is. And the Canucks, they last season, let's be honest, Nick, when we were at this point in time last year, I went into that season having no expectations whatsoever for the Vancouver Canucks.
No.
But seeing the record that they did, 50-win season, 23 losses, 9 overtime losses, and having that record of 27-9 at home, Pacific Division champions for the first time since 2012-13, man, like, it was
It
it
was a
was
great
such
year.
it was a great year. It was such a fun time to be living in Vancouver during playoff time again, because we really saw this city, like, let's be honest, there's been a lot of issues. There's been a lot of things that have caused people to grow so apart, that have caused people to, start hating one another. And, I know we talked about it earlier on at the start of the show, but seeing this team bring so many people together, like, you'd see people hugging one another, you'd see people having arms around one another, waving the Canucks flags, going to games together, like, just seeing how together everybody was, man. It was a special feeling, I'm not gonna lie. And we've been through some very dark years this past decade. Like, we like to call it the decade of darkness, but it's really been so much more than that. And seeing the city so united this past season, I can only pray and hope that there is some sort of continuity heading into next season. And while it may not be for the sake of the Canucks' success as a team, I'm hoping that it is for the sake of our city and just seeing people together again.
Are there any other storylines that you've got you're looking forward to this year?
Edmonton Oilers, I wanted to talk a bit about them. Heading into the final here with this team, and just kind of thinking about what they've gone through in terms of Philip Broberg, Dylan Holloway. They had to lose them to St. Louis.
Yeah.
Lost Warren Fogle, Vincent Desharnais obviously coming to the Canucks. Sam Carrick going to New York. Jack Campbell, they lost him as well. And Jack Campbell's a topic that we'll save for some other day. But they've made a lot of trades, but one trade that I really liked the Edmonton Oilers did to Buffalo, they sent Ryan McLeod and Tyler Tullio. In return, they got Matt Savoy. And
Mm.
Matt Savoy, this is a prospect that was drafted ninth overall by the Buffalo Sabres in 2022. And for the Oilers to get him for what they did, like, I don't know how that happened. I don't know what they did to pull that off, but that was a great move. And we got to also make mention that the Oilers, they also have a new general manager now in Stan Bowman, and there
Hmm.
has been quite a lot of controversy behind that as well. But not getting too much into the Oilers, I expect them to play at the similar level that they did in the playoffs this upcoming season. I know Connor McDavid is one pissed off guy. Like, he is looking for revenge this
Him and
season.
Draisaitl are going to come out hot. That's for sure.
Exactly. And if you have the best player in the world, by far the best player in the world, on a revenge tour, good luck to all the
Watch
other
out.
teams.
pretty much does it. Jag, I really want to thank you for being a special guest in this video today.
Special thank you to you as well, Nick. I know, especially on the day that we recorded this as well, it was a very, very tough morning. But I think for myself, I definitely needed this in a sort of sense to kind of have that time away from everything else going on in life right now and just focusing on the upcoming NHL season. I really appreciate you for having me on. And the good thing about you and I is we have so many sports in common that we can talk about anything and everything. And I'm sure that I'd especially love to be back on whenever you decide to have me back. And I'm looking forward to this episode releasing and for our listeners to sort of get a different viewpoint as to how things stand in the upcoming season for the NHL.
I'm excited to get this season started and to see how it unfolds. So again, I really appreciate you coming on here and being a guest in this preview and prediction video. And hope you have a great day, man. And I hope you guys at home have a great day as well. And tell your loved ones that you love them.